Welcome to this article today. Let's learn about the First Sikh War. This is one of the most important wars in the Indian history and is important for several competitive exams. In 1845-46, the British fought a war against the powerful Sikh Empire in the Punjab. After several bitterly fought battles, the conflict ended with the British taking partial control of the Sikh territories. Let's see what the Sikh Empire looked like. During the early 19th century, the Sikh Kingdom of the Punjab, a region now encompassing parts of northern India and eastern Pakistan, was built and expanded under the rule of Maharaja Ranjit Singh. During the same period, British India was also growing, under the control of the East India Company, so that by the 1830s, East Territory was adjacent to the Punjab. Ranjit Singh was a skilled politician who maintained an uneasy alliance with the British, while increasing the strength of his army to deter any possible aggression. However, when he died in 1839, the Punjab fell into chaos. There was a succession of weak and short-lived rulers, some of whom were assassinated, and increasing tension between the army and the royal court, where the infant Dulip Singh was eventually installed as Maharaja with his mother as regent. Eyeing the disorder with concern, the British started to build up their forces on the borders of Punjab, strengthening their cantonment at Ferozepur. Some British officials hoped for war, believing the Sikhs were the only remaining power that could threaten their hold over India. In Khalsa, it became important to history. The Sikh army, the Khalsa, literally the pure, was probably the most formidable opponent the British faced on the Indian subcontinent. It was composed of traditional Indian irregular cavalry and infantry, alongside European trained regulars. The latter even wore redcoats like the British Army and East India Company's armies. The Sikh artillery was of particularly high standard, but his cavalry units often lacked discipline. Although it contained a small minority of Hindu and Muslim, Punjabi and Kashmiri troops, the vast majority of its soldiers were Sikhs, who viewed themselves as the true embodiment of the Sikh nation and religion. Certain factions within the Khalsa, believing a clash inevitable, were emboldened by recent British setbacks in the First Afghan War from 1839 to 1842, and the vulnerability this exposed. Now comes the outbreak. The growing tension eventually led the Khalsa to cross the Sutlej River into British territory on 11th December 1845, hoping to catch the latter unprepared. Members of the Sikh court who wanted to curtail the Khalsa's growing power may have encouraged this risky act of aggression. Indeed, the precise motives for some of the Sikh leaders' actions remain undisputed. Some of the Khalsa's own commanders, such as General Lal Singh and Tek Singh, were actually accused of helping the British and betraying their troops during the campaign. Mudki. One Sikh army under Tej Singh advanced on Ferozepur cantonment but made no effort to attack the exposed British force there. At the same time, Lal Singh led another army consisting of 10,000 cavalry, 4,000 infantry and 22 guns towards Mudki, some 18 miles or 29 kilometers from Ferozepur. On 18 December 1845, Lal Singh's army met a British Indian force of 12,000 troops and 42 guns that had been dispatched under the command of General Sir Hugh Gough, the Commander-in-Chief in India, and Viscount Henry Hardinge, Governor-General of India, to reinforce Ferozepur. The ensuing struggle was decided when a British cavalry charge turned the left flank of the Khalsa's position, forcing the Sikhs to retire with heavy losses during the night. Lal Singh had left the fight much earlier. The Sikh rank and file, however, had shown fierce resistance, while the Khalsa's artillery inflicted many casualties, including Brigade Commander Major General Sir Robert Sell and Major General Sir John McCaskill. Feroz Shah. The Battle of Mudki decided little, The following day, the British advanced on nearby Ferozepur, where they encountered a Sikh army of around 40,000 troops, again led by Lal Singh, positioned behind strong entrenchments. General Gao wished to attack at once, but Hardinge used his position as Governor-General to overrule him, insisting they wait for more troops from Ferozepur. When the reinforcements arrived on 21st December, Gao's 18,000-strong force attacked the Sikhs' defences. By evening, these had only been partially taken. A renewed assault the following morning forced the Sikhs out, but at heavy cost to the British. When a new Sikh army arrived, under the command of Tej Singh, General Gao withdrew his weakened force, now low on supplies, to the captured entrenchments to await its attack. But the Sikhs withdrew. Perhaps the Sikhs overestimated the British strength and supplies and believed they would not be able to eject them. Alternatively, their retreat may have been motivated by the treachery of their generals. Whatever the reason, this was a lucky escape for Hardinge and Gao. Now, both sides reinforce. General Gao's army was exhausted and in need of rest and reinforcement. Likewise, the Sikhs were temporarily put on the back foot by the two defeats and suspicions around their commanders' motives. However, the Sikhs soon mobilized new units and moved to renew the war. They recrossed the Satluj and established a bridgehead at Sobrow. To capture this operation, Ranjit Singh Majithia led another Sikh force to attack the British fort at Ludhiana and threaten their supply lines. Aliwal. Alerted to this threat, General Gao detached troops under General Sir Harry Smith to counter Ranjit Singh. Although the Sikh irregular cavalry harassed his column and captured his baggage, after an exhausting march, Smith eventually reached Ludhiana ahead of the main Sikh force. The Ludhiana garrison reinforced his troops, and at nearby Aliwal on 28 January 1846, he won a model victory, rolling up the Sikh line, inflicting around 3,000 casualties for the cost of only 475 British and Indian troops and eliminating the threat to the British rear. Sobrow. General Smith now moved to rejoin General Gao. The reinforced British then successfully attacked the main Sikh force at Sobrow on 10th February 1846. The Sikhs once again occupied an entrenched position, and British and Indian troops advanced under intense Sikh artillery fire. The engineers eventually blew a breach in the fortification, and British cavalry and horse artillery pushed through it to engage the Sikhs in the center of their position. The Sikhs fought with their backs to the river Satluj, refusing to surrender. As a result, casualties on both sides were high. British losses were more than 2,000. The Sikhs sustained perhaps as many as 10,000. Many Sikhs were unable to escape as their pontoon bridges across the river had been destroyed. It is still debated whether this was the result of too much traffic trying to cross, or whether Tej Singh, who had fled the battlefield early, deliberately cast the boats loose. His defenders claim he destroyed the bridges to delay General Gao's advance on the Sikh capital, Lahore. But the British soon reached it anyway. The Treaty. The victory at Sobrow led to the Treaty of Lahore that brought an end to the war. The Sikhs conceded large tracts of the Punjab to the British, including the Julundur, Doab and Hazara, along with several important forts and towns. The treaty also led to Jammu and Kashmir becoming a separate princely state under British control. Lal Singh was confirmed as Wazir of Lahore, but later fell from grace after fomenting trouble in Kashmir. He was eventually exiled from the Punjab by the British. The East India Company appointed Colonel Sir Henry Lawrence as a resident to oversee the royal court and the young Maharaja Dulip Singh. A large British garrison was also stationed in the capital. 2 years on, anger at this British interference in the government caused a revolt that led to the Second Sikh War in 1848-1849. Thank you very much for listening to this incredibly important part of history. in India. Thank you.